Hello once again. I am back with the last video in this series. I want to show you what you can do with PCSE 42 inks for the Pro 100. If you are able to still grab a Pro 100, grab it. It's going to be more expensive than you ever thought, but it is a printer that will be able to output some of the best work you will ever see. Okay? If you do it correctly. Now the PCSE inks will outperform the original inks for the Pro 100. Okay? They will. They have been adjusted to produce a more accurate red as well as accurate magentas, blues, and purples. Okay? And cyans, of course. Now let me show you one image. I believe this is caviar on A-sub glossy paper. Look at the intensity of those reds. Okay? I'm telling you, the output is fantastic. What about the blacks? People want a very strong D-Max. It's there. It's there. There you go. What techniques did I use? Normal color management. Okay. I got a profile that I made for it. Of course, that's imperative that you make a profile for that combination, because it's totally unrelated combination. You have an unknown glossy paper, you have an unknown set of inks, and a known printer. So you need to combine those three aspects and make a profile that will take every one of those differences into account. And that's the kind of output you will get. This shot is from the internet. I found it on a free site. The background of this dancer, it's been graffitied to death. It's gorgeous. You need to be here with me to see this. This is luster paper, PCSE inks with the new cyan ink that he kind of secretly introduced, because he noticed that the cyan output was not really what OEM was able to put out. So not only did he improve it and brought it out, but also surpassed it a tiny little bit. And again, when you look at the output of a Pro 200, this is what we are seeing here with the Pro 100, where the Pro 100 was not able to do that prior to these inks coming out. That's why the development of the Pro 200 was basically initiated. They did not want to just simply replace the ink set with a new ink set. They replaced the ink set, yes, but also introduced it on a new printer. The rest of the colors, amazing. Totally amazing. How do I get this quality? Correct color management. And that's been beaten like a dead horse. Okay? Make sure you learn how to do that correctly. This one here is a killer. This is impossible to reproduce correctly. This is the engine of a show car at a show. It has been painted the most ridiculous, almost purplish blue, very deep. And of course, this is a digital shot of it. How accurate can that be captured by a camera sensor? I don't know. I was not there to see the actual original color, but I only had the image to work with, and I'm trying to duplicate the colors that I saw on my screen on paper. I chose luster because it's a very reflective paper and able to show me, at least maximize the ability of those inks on that particular paper. Custom profile, of course. Again, ridiculous. There's a little bit of red right here, beautifully depicted as well. These areas here are not quite neutral. They're getting a lot of reflective effect from the surrounding of this, all of this blue-purple paint job. And so they do not look neutral, but this does. This filter here that's exposed certainly does look neutral. And again, it's as good as it gets. I looked at this on the screen and I thought, oh gosh, this is a lost cause. I cannot reproduce this. Okay, and I did it on OEM as well. I don't know where I have it. I'm sorry. But it did not match what I saw on the screen. Then PC said, hey, stop what you're doing. Stop the presses. I'm going to send you a new cyan. Throw away the old cyan. I said, okay, yes, sir. Received the new cyan, incorporated into the Pro 100 ink set that I was currently using, the SE ink set. Boom. Done. Here's a little bit of non-blue, a little bit of yellow right here. And I'm looking at these little accent colors to see if the whole image is not, purple. Maybe the printer is just saying, the heck with it, I'm just going to make everything purple, blue. No, it was able to do that and still maintain area of neutrality in the other areas that had a few other non-purple blue colors depicted correctly. There's a little bit of non-purple blue color here as well. And again, I am absolutely satisfied with this result. You cannot beat that. So yeah, as we were talking about earlier, these inks are going to fade a lot quicker than OEM. Of course they are. But so do every other ink out there that is non-OEM. Even the ones that are pigment, they will fade quicker than the OEM pigment equivalents. Everything fades. I have a Firebird, red Firebird outside that looks kind of brownish orange right now. It's been sitting there since probably 1990. And the people who own it keep putting new tags on it, and they don't ever want to get rid of it. It doesn't run, but it's completely faded. That's my point. Everything fades. All right? So don't lose sleep over your prints fading or over the longevity of your prints because you're using a third-party source. Learn how to increase that longevity. There are ways to combat that. Sprays, frame under glass. Nothing in my house that I even display unprotected ever fades. It's not being blasted by tons of UV. It's not being blasted by a lot of ozone in the air. I test that, okay? And I've had stuff last for years without any kind of sign of fading. How do I know that? Because I have a frame over the unprotected print. If I remove that frame and I look at the edge, in other words, it's matted so that it covers about 1/4 of an inch of the actual image. That's being protected against light and air. I look at it and there's no difference. There is no line of demarcation where the exposed area, say, began to fade and the protective area did not. Okay, so as long as you spray them, they'll be protected. And let me tell you one little secret. RC papers have a microporous surface. Why did they introduce that? Back in the darkroom days, our paper was basically fiber-based. In other words, it was made, as most papers were, out of wood fibers. So, cellulose. Cellulose had a huge affinity to the last chemical bath, which was sodium disulfate, or fixer. Fixer will dissolve all of the silver salts that were not converted to silver, so that you only ended up with an image composed of silver, not containing any silver salts. Well, you couldn't wash out the sodium disulfate. It would bind, basically almost chemically bonding to the fibers. You wash the living daylights out of them for like an hour, running water, wasting a lot of water, the environment, imagine. So environmental movements were very active in the 60s. They invented RC paper. RC paper sealed the paper base. Fibers were no longer exposed to the chemical, and after a couple of minutes of washing, you had no more chemicals in your paper. But the blacks were terrible. Okay, you did not have the strong blacks. They actually changed the formulation of the light-sensitive coating. Besides that, so now we get into inkjet printing. The same thing happened. We had paper-based type media with a clear gelatin coating that would swell after it got wet with the little droplets of ink. It would actually encapsulate the ink, and it took 3 or 4 days to dry. You couldn't touch them until they were fully dry, and finally that would settle down to more or less dry condition, and the dyes were encapsulated. The dyes were horrible. I don't care whether they were OEM or not. They were horrible and they would fade. The encapsulation that took place inside this layer of gelatin prevented ozone from affecting it. So they would last a little bit longer than, say, a non-swellable type coating paper. So then RC papers came out because people were tired of having to leave their prints on a table to dry for days. They wanted to instantly be able to handle them. So they make this microporous coating that allowed the ink to literally kind of evaporate quickly. As soon as it comes out, you can touch it. It's fine. The problem is then the ink that was inside the coating was exposed to the air because it was still microporous. And ozone can enter and destroy that dye ink image. And it can do it depending on the conditions within 2 weeks or maybe a year. It didn't matter. Depend on the conditions again. Conditions were imperative. I experienced that early in the 2000s, okay? Early on, 2002, 2003. Epson had a dye ink printer that was supposed to be top of the line back in that era. Prints would not last more than 3 weeks under certain conditions. Yeah. And huge level of complaints were posed to Epson. Epson, of course, denied everything until finally they realized what was going on, and they began to solve those problems and enter pigment ink printers, which then everybody hated because the prints they produced were so dull because, of course, pigment is not transparent like dye inks are. All right, enough of that. So the point is that finally we arrive at a situation where we have papers that dry instantly, allow you to print with dyes, even allow you to print with pigment inks, and immediately they're dry to the touch, but then they are open to gas exchange. They allow the print to degas itself, but they also allow the harmful gases to enter. So let them dry. Okay, let them dry. They're not going to die within, a few days. Let them fully dry. Spray them. Have an area where you can spray your prints and not have dust land on them or whatever. Choose a good spray like Hanamule or Moab Desert Varnish. They do not change the look of your surface. They do not change the look of your level of gloss your paper may contain. So it looks like it was totally unaffected and will protect your print. If you have a paper-based non-RC paper, you want to protect it, spray both sides. The back side is not resin coated. Gas can enter it. And of course the front as well. So spray both sides. If you have a RC paper, microporous of course, only spray the surface. It will increase your third-party dye inks by a factor of 10 maybe. My grandson is 9. I have a framed picture of him, looking between 2 trees at me. It looks unaffected. He was 2 years old. So that's going on about 7 years now. I don't have it exposed to very, harmful conditions, but still, it has lasted that long. I have a panorama there. I have a panorama right here. Basically unchanged. One of these days I'll show you what I have on my walls. And I got a picture on a frame over there that is still unaffected. I've been doing this for a very long time, okay? And I have prints that have been with me since my beginning. And they are still the way they were when I printed them. Again, all it takes is a little extra protection from you, the user. Very simple. All right, that's enough. Thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and like. And of course, until the next time, happy printing always. Bye-bye, everybody.